let's face it, when people are looking at funding for college, people usually look in high school going to college or when you're in college. No. We know that like educational expenses start before then, and people want to start early. I'm the type A, as you can see from my story with me being like, well, what's going on here? And as a child, like most children, like my parents got it. I was just like, nah, I gotta make the situation better. Like they saying she could play the full amount. I know what this is the amount that you're supposed to get. These are taxes. These are bills. You left with this amount left. Like this ain't it, but this is where I wanted to be. So I just rolled up my sleeves and figured out a way to assist my family and just go for what I want. But it also requires, like, I want to encourage other people to find out what really fills your cup and what's your passion and what you want to go after. And don't be afraid to communicate it to your network and to other people. And don't be afraid to ask.
All right, we are back with another episode of Grow Beyond the Budget. I am so excited for our next guest. This is Crystal Goliday. Crystal and I have been connected via social media for the past couple of years, and I absolutely love the work that she does because she is the fund finder for education. She has accomplished and achieved her 3 degrees debt-free, and she helps other people go to college debt-free also. So knowing me and what I am all about, I absolutely love her mission. And so I'm super excited. When I was thinking about having the podcast, I was like, Crystal has to be one of the people who are on it. And I'm super honored to have you as our first guest. So Crystal, can you please do us a favor and introduce yourself to the people?
Well, I'm so happy to be here, and I did not know I was your first guest, so I feel truly, truly honored because the feelings that you have for me, I have for you as well. And I am Crystal Goliday, also known as the Fund Finder for Education, also known as Crystal Where the Money Resides Goliday. Because as she mentioned, I was able to get not 1, not 2, but all 3 of my college degrees for free. And that is tuition, housing, books, fees, and professional conferences at an undergraduate and graduate level. And for me, a lot of people were asking me about my journey. So I became a published author and documented my first book, How to Get a College Degree for Free, so that I can tell them about my tips and resources, but also my journey, and wanted people to see a person that looks like them, especially our younger generation, and let them know that it's possible. So in addition to being known as the Fund Finder for Education, I'm an author. I'm also the founder and executive director for a 501c3 nonprofit titled Never Underestimate Knowledge, or NUK. I call it NOOK for short. And we provide resources for inner city youth and domestic violence survivors. And I also have a gig in the corporate world, but for me, it's very fulfilling to empower our community to be able to achieve our goals, whatever our goals are. And we know that education is the core of it. And people may think that money is not out there, but it is. And they may not know where to go. So that's why you have me, because I'm able to find it from traditional and non-traditional ways of finding money. Because it wasn't just scholarships and I had no loans. So wanted to put that out there.
See, now y'all can probably understand why I wanted to have Crystal on this podcast. There is a wealth of knowledge that Crystal has when it comes to navigating this space. And, I think this conversation is very timely as, we are coming up on student loans, the pause that started in 2020 ending, and people starting to resume their student loan payments. When we're thinking about planning ahead for our children, or, more career development or professional educational development, there are ways to go to school and to get more degrees without going into debt in the process. And again, all we need is a little bit of support and resources for us to be able to do that. But before we go into the questions, Crystal, I saw on your website that you are also known as Coach Chris MG. Can you tell us what that means?
Yeah, so that was the start of my entrepreneurship journey. So I started in the wellness industry, being a coach for that aspect. And, you know, with coaching, it's physical as well as mental, as well as health wise in regards to eating. So I started that back in 2013 with my journey, and then just other people saw my results. So I started doing that. I'm not as active with doing that right now. I do more so accountability, but that email and that whatever you saw stuck with me. So Coach Chris MG, CRYS, the short part of the first part of my name. Some people may call me Chris, but only if you know me.
Okay,
So
so what does the MG stand for?
M for my maiden last name, G for my married last name.
Gotcha.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
All right, so we're going to call you Coach Chris also, because listen, I want you, because I feel like, especially with, fun finding, it's not just consulting and telling people a strategy and telling people what to do. You also kind of have to add that coaching aspect to it, that accountability and asking the right questions and helping people really to understand the concepts and things that you're teaching them. So I'm pretty sure you still wear your coaching hat, maybe even more than you realize.
Yeah, because people use the words consultant, coach, and, mentor, all those other things interchangeably. I know there are distinct differences between the different ones. However, for me, I do also offer the consulting services. So people that empower themselves and invest in that, they may look at me as their coach through that process. And then also after connecting with me, but they have those dedicated time when they have their consulting.
Yes, I love it.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so tell us just a little bit more about your journey, because I am very interested. I know you have laid it all out in your book, but tell me a little bit how you got here, not just the 1, but the 2 and the 3 degrees. And what was that process like for you? And tell us a little bit about that journey of going to college debt free.
Absolutely. So you'll be shocked, but I was shy Crystal growing up. In actually in nursery school, I got the book, the people with the little characters with the faces, and it was just a circle. I got Little Miss Shy. And I realized through life is going to happen for you and to you unless you speak up for yourself. So I ended up finding my voice throughout my journey in life, especially at a young age, because I had a speech impediment. And I got teased by an elementary school teacher. I went through speech therapy, but I had a village that helped me to learn what study skills worked for me, as well as improve in the areas that I was a little deficient in, which was speaking clearly because I stuttered. And then also with my reading scores, they were very low. So with that, and having tutoring on Saturdays, because we know with Saturdays back in the day, it was the cartoon day in the morning, but I had to watch a little bit of cartoons, and then I had to go to tutoring. My mom had me busy 7 days a week in a good way. Sunday was a little bit more like fashion show, kind of entertainment, stuff like that. I was a part of a production company. And with that, over the years, I improved with my education. I was a part of the New York public school system. So if you know me, I'm New York to the heart, but I have a heart of a Southern belle. People are really shocked when they find out I'm from New York, because I am, nice. And not saying that New Yorkers aren't nice, but we have a reputation with the stone boots and everything. Yeah. And I like to smile. Yellow's my favorite color. These are my signature glasses with Coach Chris MG on the side. You probably can't see it right now, but with that, over the years, going from speech impediment, going from low literacy scores, I went to middle school and I got placed in a gifted program, exceptionally gifted program. This is the program that people had to get tested into. In 7th grade, I, as well as maybe like a handful of us in my public middle school, got placed in it. So that was like a sign, like, okay, the things that my village, especially my mom, was doing was helping me on the right academic trajectory. Then for me, I saw what was just happening in society with like gangs and violence, and I wanted to see what it was like wearing a uniform. Like, don't get me wrong, I was very stylish. Had all the 5411s. For those who don't know, those are the Reeboks with the colors with the 2 straps. Had all the colors, Air Max, all of that. Actually, Air Max, yeah, they were out around more high school time for me. But nonetheless, my dad kept me laced in regards to nice clothes and stuff like that. But I wanted to wear a uniform, and I wanted to see what the structure was like and see how it was on the other side. They say grass is greener on the other side. Kind of sort of wasn't in private school, because when I went to private school, I was advanced in math. So I ended up, by the time senior year of high school, I was going to college because I wanted to still stimulate my mind. And when I went to this private school, I found out, this is the start of my journey of becoming the fun finder education, not even knowing, my mama was paying a couple of $100 a month. Some people were paying $50 a month. And I'm like, wait a minute, this is not fair. Because I heard the arguments about my parents with rent and this and that and, all of that. And my dad was, managing 2 households. And I just knew that I wanted to do my part and I wanted what I wanted. And I knew for college, because a different world was on during that time, I knew I wanted to go to college. And I knew I didn't want it to be in New York, because I saw outside of New York with like my summer camp, as well as my godmom living in the Tidewater area in Virginia Beach. And I knew I wanted more for myself and outside of the concrete jungle of New York, which I love, but won't move back because I had 18 years there. So I wasn't able to get the $50 route of paying for the tuition. However, by sophomore year, I found out about the scholarships, was inducted in the National Honor Society, and I was able to get funding for my high school career. What I found out, my mom didn't know about these things nor research, because she was working full time. She was managing me, managing my schedule, all of that other stuff, as well as, living her life too. So that started that journey. And then when it came to college time, I put it out there what I wanted to do, because I knew that I love math. Math is still my favorite subject. I even taught my prince, who's in elementary school, math class as, just a parent coming in and teaching a math lesson. And science, I was always interested. So I was like a cool nerd. Very, very cool. I was in the in crowd, my whole crew in high school. We had a name, we had the yearbook on page, all of that stuff. So just being a nerd, I know some people may think it's not a cool thing, but it even came back to my high school spoke 15 years after. But I researched what different fields that had a lot of math, and I knew I didn't want to be an accountant. I just knew just certain things for other fields didn't fit with me. But then engineering, I was like, that could work, but what are the different disciplines of engineering? So I further researched that. And when I went to Drexel University, which is my undergraduate university, and I have my second book in conjunction with them, this one right here, because I'm a contributing author for that book. And I asked which major in engineering has the most math, and they said computer engineering. So I decided on that one for that. And I'm also amazed by the motherboard of a computer. So in undergrad, I learned the hardware aspect as well as the software aspects of a computer. And the reason why I chose Drexel, one, they got back to me the quickest. And secondly, I was able to be fully funded with my tuition and housing through one route. And then a program I was in, which I call like pipeline programs, because you participate in it and there may be some funding associated with networking, because that's a different type of funding. So if you go to my YouTube channel, I list out and I talk about different funding sources in my playlist called Saturday Noon Live. And I was able to get the most funding there, but then it was in Philly, which was not too far from home. And with that, I was still able to come home, still have a city life, and still, create my next chapter, but not to be too far away from home, because my dad was sick as well. I saw him deteriorate in front of me over 2 decades. And with me in high school, with me being a part of different organizations, which my mom instilled in me, be a part of your community, give back. Because I found out recently, because both of my parents are deceased, she was on the board for my nursery school.
Oh, wow.
I didn't like correlate the years, but I saw her and her role and just the paperwork. And I'm like, wow, so my mom been doing this stuff even before I thought she was doing this. I thought it was just like volunteering for summer camp, after school, this program that I was a part of back in the Bronx called Youth Activities Committee. We call it YAC for short, which these colors kind of symbolize it. They become my colors for a reason. The yellow, because it brings sunshine into people's lives, and my favorite color, and it looks very popping on the melanated skin.
Yes, ma'am.
Money, honey, and it's my mom's favorite color too. So it's kind of in honor of her, as well as my journey as well. So you'll see me a lot in yellow. My book is in yellow and green, and all of that other stuff. But when I was in high school, I was the pre-college initiative chair in NSBE, which is the National Society for Black Engineers, and I curated a program, which is a shadowing program for students in high school to come into college for a weekend, have a professor, spend the night in a dorm, have a mentor, all of that. So when I was telling them my journey, they're like, well, wow, like, how can you help us? And, what do you want to do after college and all that? So they had me thinking. And at that time, I did want to have a leadership and learning development center. But as we know, as we get older, there's additional costs like overhead and stuff with having a facility. So, and plus, I was following my parents' dreams of go to school, go to college, get a good job. And their ending was a little bit different. Get a good job that you retire and then you enjoy your life. Well, my dad had to retire early because of his health. And my mom was able to retire early actually when I was in college because she didn't have to pay for anything. But it was also kind of retiring early. And after just hearing the stories after, because of I think it was also ageism and technology was taking over. They want to have so many screens and all this other stuff. But nonetheless, I was able to go to college for free, as well as get recruited and, you know how people say flown out to the DMV area by a Fortune 500 company a week before we were going away. My dad and we had a business in New York that I was, helping to be a buyer at I think it was the Magic Festival in Vegas. So they flew me here, had the interview, flew out to Vegas. I got the offer letter when I was in Vegas. My dad was like, he worked all his life for my starting salary. I'm like, work hard. Like, I want to negotiate, but okay, I'm grateful. But there's just so many thoughts in my mind, and for him to be so proud, because I've seen him. He was a very hardworking man, where he would give the shirt and the shoes and the pants off of his back and his body for other people. But after that, your cup is empty because you're not pouring into yourself, and that's how his health deteriorated in front of me, and probably being a little stubborn too. So with that, I, did climb the corporate ladder, got married, had the baby carriage. Then my dad passed away when I was pregnant. And I even had like an exhaustion, passed out when we were planning his stuff. And that was a wake up call, like, okay, Crystal, you're doing too much. You're burning the candle at both ends. And then when my mom died, when she was sick, 5 years after, same hospital, ICUs on the same floor in the same hospital, I was like, yo, you are basically, yes, you're following the guidelines that your parents had for you and what they wanted for you. You did that part. However, what does Crystal want? So at the bedside of my mom, I founded Never Underestimate Knowledge, which is the nonprofit that I am the executive director for. And then I wrote my book at the bedside of my mom in ICU because I was in a mastermind, and they just pulled out of me like what my thing is, right? And what I can share with the world. So it really helps. And I know this is not associated with your question, to be in a community that is supportive but also challenges you, because I was thinking about just a journal for moms, and they were like, no, run it back 3 degrees for free. Like, what are you talking about? Like, we need this ASAPing thing. That's my little way of saying ASAP, as soon as possible. Got a little this is name, not Jay-Z, but his partner from back in the day. But nonetheless, with that, like, now my book is in English, Spanish, French, ebook, as well as audiobook. And, I partnered with Drexel University for the second book with other alumni, and both books are feeding back into the community. With my book is feeding into Never Underestimate Knowledge with annual scholarships for all school ages. Let me repeat that. All school ages, because let's face it, when people are looking at funding for college, people usually look in high school going to college or when you're in college. No. We know that like educational expenses start before then, and people want to start early. I'm a type A, as you can see from my story, with me being like, well, what's going on here? And as a child, like most children, like my parents got it. I was just like, nah, I got to make the situation better. Like, they saying she could play the full amount. I know this is the amount that you're supposed to get. These are taxes. These are bills. You left with this amount left. Like, this ain't it, but this is where I wanted to be. So I just rolled up my sleeves and figured out a way to assist my family and just go for what I want. But it also requires, like, I want to encourage other people to find out what really fills your cup and what's your passion and what you want to go after. And don't be afraid to communicate it to your network, and to other people. And don't forget, be afraid to ask. Like, I'm in a situation now with like work stuff, and I'm letting people know what's happening with the company that I work for. Because a lot of companies, they got a lot of stuff going on with them.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
ideal. We would love to work, all work as entrepreneurs, but yeah,
Yeah.
deal with the
That is
corporate.
an amazing story, Crystal. Thank you. There's a couple of things that I really like pulled away from that, like just kind of themes throughout your entire journey. One is that you didn't let anything limit you. I love that you, in the beginning of your story, you talked about how, you had a speech impediment and you were shy growing up and you had a teacher that ridiculed you, which is wild to me because these days, Lord, we would have their head on a spike probably if you like went and talked about a student, especially someone with a learning disability. Though that doesn't happen as much anymore. So like I'm just outraged to even hear that happened to you. But sometimes what can happen is people allow those experiences and those different things and challenges that they have to limit them and keep them small and keep them stuck. And you didn't allow any of that to limit you. But another thing that I kind of pulled away from this is just your curiosity. I absolutely love that. And I think that's probably why you make a really good engineer. But just being curious and staying committed to, your journey and your process, finding different scholarships and different ways to have funding and being curious about, okay, what's this private school about? Right? Like there's so many things that you were curious about that have really helped you get to where you are now. And I absolutely love that. And so I feel like if we don't let anything limit us and we continue to just, expand and grow, you also, one other thing that I want to just really highlight is that you put in the work. Okay. From the 7 days, working and working on Saturdays. And I remember the cartoons on Saturday.
That was it.
Like that was the thing. And so for you to not even sacrifice, but just replace those experiences for something that will enrich you for the rest of your life. I commend your mom for having you do that. And that work ethic seems to have stuck with you. And so just being committed and putting in the work to get to where you want to be. Those are some really like common like threads that I saw throughout your journey as you were just talking. And I wanted to highlight those because those are truly commendable. And I want to make sure that we bring attention to that as people listen to your story, because it's not just, okay, Crystal, she decided to be an engineer. These are things that you can pull from and things that you can pull from too. We just have to tap into it. So thank you so much for sharing that. I am sure your parents are extremely proud of where you are right now. And even though you have decided to alter the ending, I think that makes it even more probably amazing to your parents watching down. As a mom, one of my biggest goals for my kids is for them to go further and dream bigger than I could have dreamed for them. And so because you are doing that, I'm sure you are honoring your parents in the most amazing and precious way. So I just wanted to share that too.
I appreciate that. And I decided to continue their legacy with scholarships in their honor. So every year I offer 2 types of scholarships under Never Underestimate Knowledge. So the first one I offered and I released the first year that after we were founded is in honor of my mom. And that's for high school and college students. It's the RHM scholarship. If you go to the website neverunderestimateknowledge.org and click on the scholarships, you'll see information about the awarding event where you can get your tickets and support that. It's just a name your own donation. It's each scholarship with a description and a link to apply. And that first one I did because it was hard for me to cope with her death. And I wanted to do something that she would have done because she was doing that with her junior high school in her class at her junior high school. So that just automatically clicked to me. And the target audiences for my nonprofit are inner city youth and domestic violence survivors, because I was a part of both of those communities. And I want to empower those communities the best way I can and do Never Underestimate Knowledge. And then after that first year, was it the second year? Nonetheless, second and third year, we introduced the scholarship in honor of my dad. the TGM scholarship. And that took it to the different levels for elementary school, middle school, and adult scholars. Because as a parent, we know we want to prepare our children for the future and or put them in private school or have different activities throughout the school year, right? Even with COVID, there was additional educational costs where you had to do math and all that other stuff. Then adult scholars, because I was on the end where luckily I had not a scholarship, because there's different ways I got the things paid for, which I go to do in my book, and I can share some, or you can go to my YouTube channel. But when it comes to people want to go back and continue their education or even start it, that funding is a little bit different, or you just want to continue it and be in grad school. So I wanted to hit the spectrum of the age groups that are not as
that are underserved.
Yes. Yeah. With funding. So that is why we do that every year. And the applications are open now. And their applications are due by October 4th. So this timing is perfect because on November 4th, we have the whole creating legacies today. You get the theme, right? Honoring my parents, as well as creating our own individual legacy with our education and feeding into whatever our goals are. We do that November 4th. Saturday, November 4th, and it's virtual. We kept it virtual even after COVID because we want to reach the masses, and also these opportunities are for throughout the US, So that's why I did those things, continuing their legacy. And the application parts are easy. Like, I know a lot of applications are very intense. This, we don't even do an essay, we do a video. And, you have to do your proof of enrollment and stuff like that. But once you provide your information, you're in the pool of being selected, and it's randomly selected because there's no favoritisms at Never Underestimate Knowledge. And there is not based on financial need, because we know that's a stipulation when it comes to some funding sources. And it is not based on grades, because even though I was not the valedictorian salutatorian, I got if not the most, almost the most money to go to college. And I even spoke at my graduation and got the most awards. Other families was like coming up to me, congratulating me for my high school graduation. So just know that where you start, it doesn't have to be where you finish.
Yeah, I love that. And, just kind of on the lines of what you're talking about now, like, I feel like a lot of people are intimidated by this process of getting college funding. I did not personally go to college because just looking at my home, like, you looked at your home situation, was like, okay, well, how can I find the money? I was like, okay, there's no way my parents are going to pay for this. I did not want to go into debt. And so I chose to enter the workforce. And so there's a lot of people who are either intimidated by this process, so they don't apply or they don't go. Or we know that statistically Black women in particular, or Black people, are more likely to take out loans. It takes us longer to pay them off, and we don't usually get as much money as we need to pay them off anyway. So there's so many different things that I think that we need to learn and understand when it comes to college funding. What are some of the biggest misconceptions and myths that you see when it comes to funding? And how do you start to really dispel some of those? I'm pretty sure you go through some of those in your book and on your YouTube page. But if you could think of like the top 2 or 3, like, what are some of the biggest myths when it comes to funding?
So you mentioned like things we need to learn. There's some things we need to unlearn, right?
Oh, come on now.
We need to unlearn the fact that, or that you're not worthy, right? You are worthy. There is a cause. There's something that is out there for you. So that's what we need to unlearn, because sometimes we're in our head and we're our biggest critic. Even to this day, I am my biggest critic, and some people feed into me more than I feed into myself. I'm like, wow, I really am the stuff. Like, I really accomplished that stuff. It's just shocking myself sometimes. So just know that there is something out there for you. You just have to find it. It has to find you, whatever way you want to look at it, but you should still try to put in some work. Secondly, is that there's money out there all year round. The misconception is that it's just around the time people are going to college, around the school year. No, every month there are deadlines for funding sources. So that is one of the reasons why I never underestimate knowledge does theirs when they do theirs. Because, it's not traditional where it's like within the new year or something like that. It's still before the end of the calendar year, we get it in when we decided to get it in. Also the sentimental values to me being the founder and executive director and wanted to honor my mom. So the second thing is there's money all year, all around. And the third thing, the misconception, people think it's scholarships or loans, and it's more than that. Like, I had a staff member at my undergraduate university tell me about funding, and it wasn't through scholarships or loans. And that paid for my professional conferences and, just other stuff. So it's a lot out there. You have to open up your mouth and ask, and also do the research. And if you can't and don't feel like you don't have the bandwidth, that's why I offer my consulting services, so that I can focus in on your particular situation and find the funding for you. I'm not applying for you. I'm finding it. You have to apply for it, and it's based on whatever the process for that funding organization. So those are the three things I would say.
Yeah.
Believing in yourself, knowing that funding is there all year round. And the third thing was, I forgot, but you got it because you.
The third thing was, what was the third thing? Oh gosh, it just left me too.
It's more than just scholarships and loans. Boom.
Yes, there's more than just the two. And so, I definitely at the age of 17 when I was graduating from high school didn't feel like I was worthy of going to college. I didn't feel like I had done a great job as a student and that I wouldn't be a good steward of my time in college. I definitely felt like at the time that there was either scholarships or loans. I didn't realize that there were other funding sources. And even with the scholarships, I felt like if I didn't have the best grades, or if, I had to prove some sort of financial hardship to go, there was a lot of limits that I put around myself when it came to me going into school. And so thank you for bringing those up, because those ring true for me too. I will put this out there, y'all. I'm enrolling. Oh, and we got to talk offline. I am enrolling.
You should apply for the scholarship.
Yes.
Scholarship. Yeah.
Because
and then I wanted to
it's never
say,
too late for you to grow back. Because like you just said, yeah.
I just wanted to give you a little snippet of another funding source you may not think about, right? So you purchase things from certain companies or have services, right? So we have a service that I'm paying for every month, and the provider who found the service for me, one, told me about a program that every birthday for my prince, it puts money in the account for him for college. And secondly, they have contests, which contests have some type of prize associated with this contest that I could do and he can do, which is money that we could put away for college. So just think outside of the box when you think about how you're going to pay for college, and start early. And if you start too late, it's not too late, but you're going to have to roll up your sleeves and really get to it and dedicate time every day, because it's a compound effect. Small results every day will equal a big reward. And you have to remember that. Regardless, if you don't want to do it, eat that biggest and ugliest frog first. And then it'll feel better when you do everything on your to-do list. I have my to-do list right here.
I absolutely love it. Again, I feel like this conversation is very, very timely, as people, as a federal student loan pause is getting ready to end, and people are thinking about, okay, well, how can I protect my students or my children from going into debt in their future? And what you just mentioned, start early and often. And you also just mentioned that with your scholarships, and I'm sure other funding that is available, you can start at any age, because while some of us might live in an area or a neighborhood where you want to send your kid to private school, you want to enrich them some kind of way academically, and serve them in a way that they aren't being served in school. So I love that, just starting early and just even looking for funding there. You just you're just dropping gems and opening my eyes. My daughter, has learning disabilities also, and just thinking about how we plan on supporting her as she goes into middle school in a couple years, in high school, school. And when I looked at the tuition at one of the middle schools, like the top rated middle schools in our area, I almost choked. Okay, it is the price of a public, a private college institution, and I gagged. Okay, when I saw the price of that. However, just talking to you just opens my eyes to the availability of funding, even for her age group. So I appreciate you just dropping all the gems.
No problem. And I know, and I was talking to someone that came to me because they wanted funding for their child pre-college for private school. And there is a conference. I can't think of the name right now, but I know a family member that actually participated in it. A conference for like people who are looking at private schools and stuff like that. It's worth a Google search to figure it out. I think it's an annual conference, and I just had some amazing people in my family, younger generation too. So I don't know if I was an example for them or not. But one, like
you were. Go ahead and like you were talking about like being your own worst critic. Yes, you were. Okay, let's go ahead and put it out there. You were.
because I had a cousin who ended up going to want to go to boarding school, got her full tuition paid for, and even train tickets to go back home. I had another cousin who had a sponsor that was identified in high school because of his performance to pay for him to go to college. So it's just like, I'm like, wow, like there's just, just other ways, like opposed to just saying you have a financial hardship.
Yeah.
Because honestly, everybody doesn't have a financial hardship, or according to them, you don't, but you can't afford it. So.
Listen, you feel it in your pockets, okay? Your bank balance is saying there's financial hardship, but on paper, they were like, you don't qualify. So, just thinking outside the box is absolutely necessary when it comes to this. Crystal, thank you so much for just sharing your journey, sharing about your nonprofits. Now, you have been like sprinkling your consulting and a nonprofit throughout this conversation, but I want you to explicitly just tell people how they can connect with you, how they can work with you, and more about the nonprofit too.
Sure. My website is easy, crystalgoliday.com. That's Crystal spelled the regular way, like in the dictionary as well. And Crystal, Goliday, like holiday, but with a G and one L. I don't know why people put two L's. Maybe it's because of how I say it, but it's Crystal, Crystal. Goliday is Goliday.com. On there, you can see how you can work with me. You can see how you can get the book. And also there's a link on there to the nonprofit. But if you want to go directly to the nonprofit, it is neverunderestimateknowledge.org. I know it's a lot to type. That's why you can go in my menu for NUK nonprofit, Nook nonprofit, and go there. And you could always donate. You can volunteer, like all of that good stuff, because we can't do it all by ourselves, and we do want to expand and offer more services, and that will be with your help. And just connect on social media, definitely Instagram on both, for both personal Crystal Goliday and Never Underestimate Knowledge, kept it easy. And there's other platforms that you'll see on the websites. It's either on the top or on the bottom that you could connect. But let's really connect and apply for these scholarships. You have until October 4th. It's going to be awarded November 4th. And share. I feel like people hold on to things because they think if I don't tell people, then I'm going to get it, or it's for me. If it's for you, it's going to be for you. So
yes, ma'am.
Please share. And also sign up for my email list because, well, my family, like I do Money Monday. I was doing it weekly. I decided not to do it as weekly. So it's going to come out with useful information when I publish it. But I don't do spam. I give you useful information to your email, and Instagram is where I do a lot of the updates. So yes, and I'm accessible.
Listen, I love it. So yes, you can Google her. So what I heard was multiple ways that you can stay connected, but there's also different options for you to get the support that you need to get funding. You can take the DIY route, which, you can go read her books, go on YouTube, watch the videos on YouTube, and you can learn what you need to learn to get started. You can take the done with you route, or where you are booking Crystal to help you with the consultations and finding the actual funds. If you're like, okay, I know it's out there, but somebody, Lord, please help me, because this process can be overwhelming.
It can be.
It can be tiring. And so you don't have to go it alone. I say this with all of the things. You don't have to go it alone. Crystal offers this as a service that you can work with her. And then also just staying connected on social media so that these things are top of mind, or on her email list. So these things are top of mind so you don't forget. Sometimes we have a lot of tabs open. There's things that we are thinking about and like, oh my gosh, this is so good, I need this. And then we put it on the back burner. So just make sure that you are always as proactive as possible. And this is what the Grow Beyond the Budget podcast is all about. I want you to think holistically about how we can start using our money and resources as intentionally and effectively as possible. And if one of the biggest investments that you can make into yourself is education, how can we do that without putting our dollars into that? This is how we can really start to shape the landscape of our generational wealth if we don't have to take on that burden of paying for college for ourselves or for our children. So thank you so much, Crystal, for being here. I was just sitting here just listening to all I was fangirling and listening and soaking it all up. But I appreciate you for being here. Make
Appreciate
sure
you as
that
well.
you follow Crystal. And until the next time, y'all keep growing.